everybody, and welcome to today's webinar, Discover Family History Through Gravestones. Our webinar team today is made up of Schelly Talalay Dardashti, our U.S. genealogy advisor, and Daniel Horowitz, our chief genealogist in Israel. I'll be your moderator today. My name is Esther Schumann, and I'm the U.S. and U.K. Community Manager in Israel. For those of you that are new to MyHeritage, I want to tell you a little bit about what we offer. MyHeritage.com is the most popular family network on the web. With more than 75 million registered users, 27 million family trees, and 1.5 billion profiles, MyHeritage is the place for families wishing to explore their family history and to stay connected with one another. MyHeritage's powerful search engine, SuperSearch, found at www.myheritage.research, is used for global searches and contains billions of historical records. To get the most out of this webinar, please close or pause any unused programs, such as email, Skype, Dropbox, turn up your speakers or use headphones, open the webinar's control panel, and make sure to have a pen and paper handy to take notes. Questions and comments are always welcome throughout the webinar, as with all of our webinars, so you could do so either by raising your hand, or you can type the question into the question box. So without further ado, we're going to be talking about discovering family history through gravestones. Sorry, just one moment, folks. We're just moving over the presenter. Sorry.
Okay.
Shelly, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, but I'm still showing your version. Mine isn't up.
Just share your screen and then everyone will be able to see.
I tried. I can't get out of this one. Okay. But I still think this is yours, but that's fine by me. Good morning, everyone. I'm really glad you could be with us. I'm sorry it's not good morning for most of you. It's not even good morning for me. It is good afternoon. One of the best things we have as a resource for family history are cemeteries. And you really know you're a genealogist when you spend your vacations visiting cemeteries. People go on road trips and they visit relatives and all over the place for different conferences, load up husbands and kids, and often stop at cemeteries where their ancestors are buried. And some may think this is kind of creepy, but most people think that it's a wonderful opportunity to see the areas where their ancestors lived and to actually visit the graves. And so we want to know, why is this so important to people? Many cemeteries commemorate historical events. If we're talking about down south in the United States, you have many cemeteries with people from the war between the states, you know, from Revolutionary War, from Civil War. So it presents a history of an event. In small towns, it also preserves community history, all the personalities, the founders of the town, the mayors, whoever that was important was buried in that town cemetery. It also records the lives and deaths of all citizens. Unfortunately, in many cemeteries, as you go through them, you'll be able to see the people that died during flu epidemics or typhus epidemics throughout history, which is kind of sad. But you still see that these people are all they're there and they're grouped together, and perhaps they died around the same time of the same cause. As far as a community, you have different cemeteries according to religion. Some very, very large cemeteries like Oakdale in Atlanta, Georgia, have Jewish, Christian, and even old-time Civil War, pre-Civil War segregated black and white sections of the community. And it's a very, very interesting cemetery to visit. So you can track the religious history of a community as well. Why many people feel the need to visit? For many people, it can be the closest we can actually get to our ancestors. Seeing that stone, feeling that stone, reading the words, seeing who else is buried there. I love this clip. This is from the Mount Auburn Cemetery, a line drawing from 1847 of a father with a child walking by and pointing out perhaps an ancestor's grave. It's a very poignant kind of thing. And some people, as you go through the cemeteries, you may be able then, once you have those kinds of dates, you may not have a death certificate, you may not have other documents, but if you can find them in a cemetery, and sometimes it's quite by chance, you can then go after your paper trail as well. It can go either way. You can go from a paper trail to a cemetery, you can go from a cemetery to a paper trail. But it's different for each one, of course. Many people say that, why do you do this? Cemeteries are just so creepy. This photograph is Laurel Hill Cemetery in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and that little URL is really interesting. It has a lot of other photographs about the bizarre and mysterious at Laurel Hill Cemetery, and there are actually groups of people around the world that that visit cemeteries on Halloween and at other parts of other times of the year. This one is a little spooky, I guess, but this is the way the movies kind of portray cemeteries. But I don't think of it as being creepy. I think of it perhaps as mysterious. It's a place for memories, for family memories. It's a place to reflect upon the people who are buried there and why. It provides valuable family and historic information that we might not know. Now, most cemeteries are public places, and photos by themselves do not invade privacy. However, you should be aware that private cemeteries, not public cemeteries, but private cemeteries, may well have rules about what visitors can and cannot do, and that might even go down to whether you can take photographs or not. So it always pays to do some advanced legwork and call them, locate them, find the office, ask them the questions. It's better to be prepared beforehand. Now, why are you visiting? And one of the interesting things of this seminar will be Daniel's presentation on our partnership with MyHeritage and BillionGraves, which is the second part of our webinar today, and he will discuss this. So you can be visiting as part of a society project, and obviously the group will provide guidelines of what should be done and what can be done. If it's personal and you're looking for your ancestors' graves, check with the cemetery office for grave locations. They often have them. Of course, this also depends on age and when it was. There could have been natural disasters, there could have been landslides, there could have been floods. There's a lot of reasons why perhaps you cannot find the exact location of an ancestor's grave. But the cemetery office should have a lot of information on that. Now, one of the most important things, I think, is you should never go through these cemeteries alone. They could be in the middle of the city, and I'll give you an anecdote about that right now. And they could also be really rural cemeteries off the beaten track. Many of them are overgrown. There are rocks, there are tree roots. You go alone and you're in a rural cemetery, you fall over a root and sprain an ankle, you might be there a while before somebody can find you. I had a friend who went to one of the very, very large cemeteries in Queens, and she only lived a couple of blocks away from there, but she literally got lost in this cemetery. Location-wise, she was mainly only 2 blocks away from the main road, the outside of the cemetery, but there was a fence, there was no gate, and she had the telephone number of the cemetery office, and she managed to get a hold of them so that they could come get her. But there are a lot of, so that's in the middle of a city, in a huge cemetery with hundreds of thousands of graves. So it's always better to go with a buddy, team up, just in case. One really never knows what can happen, so go with somebody. One of the most important things is to be prepared. Wear really sturdy shoes. Some cemeteries are in really sketchy places. There could be broken glass, there could be all kinds of things around there. You don't want, this is not something you want to do in flip-flops. Depending on the time of the year, even in the summer, if many cemeteries are overgrown, so you've got bugs, you've got creepy crawlies. If you're in a rural area, you have no idea what kind of little critters you might find there or might find you. So you really want to wear long sleeve shirts, you want to wear long pants, you want to wear really sturdy shoes like a boot, like a hiking boot or something. Bring insect repellent, bring sunscreen, bring a hat, bring your sunglasses, bring work gloves to help clear away the graves, bring water to drink, bring snack bars, and if you know, it's always good to throw a flashlight in your backpack. If you get stuck there, if you get lost, at least you'll have a flashlight with you. What to bring to record your data. This list seems to get longer all the time. These days, smartphones. Make sure the battery is charged at 100% before you go. Bring a charger. Bring an external extra battery. These are all interesting little accessories that you could get. Bring your digital camera. Make sure that's charged. Bring a voice recorder. Make sure that is charged. Voice recorders are interesting because you can record your feelings as you walk through that cemetery, as you find a grave, as you find a grave that you know was there, as you find something that you didn't know was there. It's a wonderful additional kind of document to have with you. Bring rags or a cloth. Make sure you bring a soft brush. We don't want wire brushes or hard brushes because that will definitely destroy and hurt the stone. Those stones have been out there, depending on the material, for a long time in most cases, and they've been quite weathered, so you don't want to use anything that will hurt the surface of the stone more. In many cases, the graves are weedy, full of weeds, they're overgrown. You might want to bring a small garden clipper or pruning shears. This is where your gloves also come in handy. You might want to pack a mirror to help with lighting some of the inscriptions, and bring a water bottle. Some experts say that using water on a gravestone is okay to wash off some of the dirt. Some of them still say you shouldn't use anything except a brush or a rag. So you can do your research on that as well. But it's important to be careful not to damage anything further. And again, do not damage the gravestones. You don't want to use shaving cream. It was very popular a few years ago. Chalk was very popular. All kinds of other chemicals, even soapy water. None of those should be used because you will damage the stones. The best thing to do, and I believe Daniel's going to go over this as well, and he has some, he'll show some slides on that as well. Wipe away the dirt, brush away the dirt from the inscriptions with just a rag or that soft brush. And again, some experts say not to use water, some say plain water is okay. R-E-S-P-E-C-T. You are in a cemetery. So try not to sit or step on the gravestones. I have to tell you that when I visited cousins in England, we went to a neighborhood cemetery, quite an old one. Most of the graves are from the 1800s. And they actually served tea at little tables situated around the cemetery. I personally thought it was a little bit creepy, but it was very strange. But it was that's what they did, and it was okay for them. If you're working with a group at a cemetery, in most cases you should probably get permission just in case. Try not to get in the way of a funeral or a memorial service that's taking place. And please, please don't leave any trash or empty water bottles. What you bring in, you should take out again. When you take your photos, and Daniel is going to discuss more of this as well, try to include the entire stone. Don't chop off the top, don't chop off the bottom. Avoid shadows of yourself, of your hands, of your camera. And make sure you only get the stone and the text, not the people. And make sure the entire text can be seen. Now with smartphones, with digital phones, it's not like the old days with film when you were afraid to use your film. You can take numerous photographs, and then when you get home you can choose the best one. If it's dark, if there are shadows, if there are clouds, use the flash on your camera or your smartphone. Anything to make it more visible. And again, because it is important, don't use chalk, shaving cream, soapy water. Use the soft brush or rag. If things are overgrown, you can brush away dead leaves. That's simple. Clip the dry weeds. If there are flower pots or containers, you can move them to take the photo, but do replace the items afterwards so that if family members do come, they'll see things have been left the way they were. Now, I put this under Jewish cemeteries, but actually the basic information is for any kind of cemetery. The basic information is that you will have the name of the deceased. You will often have the date of birth. You will have the date of death. You may have the age. In the old days, they used to calculate it. The person was 64 years and 3 months, or if it was an infant, they would say the number of months. They might say the child of and give the name of a parent. They might say the wife of and give the name of the husband. And that's a general thing. In non-Jewish, in Jewish cemeteries, we're usually very fortunate in that there's a formula for these stones, and I'll show them many of them later on. You will find, depending on where it is, let's say if it's one in Eastern Europe, the entire stone may just be in Hebrew. If we're talking about America, you will have the top part in Hebrew, you will have the bottom part in English, or depending on what country it is, in German or Dutch, the secular language of the place. The formula gives the Hebrew given name of the deceased. It also gives the Hebrew name of the deceased father, gives the date and place of birth, sometimes, definitely gives the date and place of death, occasionally gives surviving relatives. I have seen some stones in Israel and in Persian Jewish cemeteries that actually list all of the children, the daughters and their husbands with their married names, the sons and their daughters, and even grandchildren. There was one that I saw in Haifa. It was a double grave that actually had the entire genealogy of the father and the mother engraved on the stone. And this is quite an expensive proposition, but it's a wonderful thing if you have a relative that's done that. And we also know that on a stone, if it says, to our beloved husband, father, grandfather, and brother, we know that it means that the deceased had a wife, children, grandchildren, and brothers or siblings who were still alive after that person was buried. So that may give you many more clues. It's a useful thing to look for. This is an old cemetery in Zdunskowola, which is part of a heritage project. And this group in Zdunskowola is completely renovating and tracking and photographing all the stones and resetting the ones that had fallen down and doing transcriptions and geographical locations. But this could be an old cemetery anywhere. And you can see it's overgrown. You can trip over things, and you don't want to go in the winter for sure. And when we're talking about Jewish stones, Jewish cemeteries, I would say that most cemeteries in general have headstones, where the stone is, there is only a headstone. Or in modern cemeteries, there's only a plaque set in at ground level. But for Sephardic Jews who come from Iberia and then went to Rhodes and Turkey and other places, the Sephardic style is a rectangular, flat or raised stone. It often has carving. It will have carving on the top. It may even have it all the way around the edges. In Sephardic synagogues, and you'll also find these in Russian cemeteries, they have photographs of the deceased engraved or somehow fixed onto the stones as well. And you can actually see it in this one where there's a photograph of the person. This is the first Sephardic cemetery in Seattle, Washington. And as I said, many offer extensive family information such as the married names of daughters and sisters, which are, it's a wonderful resource that you may not have. You might find that if you could find the obituary of the person, where it might have the names of the relatives, but finding it on the stone is also very important. Now, probably it's a good time to discuss this now. Many times, and we know this for sure because there's a lot of history on this, mistakes are made on stones. This happens in secular cemeteries, it happens in religious cemeteries, it happens all over the place. It's a very expensive proposition, depending on the mistake, to correct a date, to correct a name. And I would say probably in most cases, if there is a mistake, the mistake would stay there even if the family knows about it, just because it's so expensive to correct. So don't be surprised if you have paper records that show a different date or a different spelling. There may well be reasons for that. And some of it can be attributed to errors made by the stonemason. I've been to the Hong Kong Jewish Cemetery, which is really interesting. I know Daniel's been there as well. It's a Sephardic and Ashkenazi synagogue in Hong Kong, quite old. The one on the right, very ornate, is the Belilos family, Sephardic family. The section in the middle is of typical Sephardic graves, which look almost like beds. On the bottom on the left, you have Dr. Leon Friedman, who was born in Krakow and died in Macau. And it has the name of the wife, and it has the name of the son, and it is in Hebrew as well. And we have another one on the top left of a woman who was born in Manchester, England, and then who was buried there as well. But, and there are rows and rows and rows of children's graves, which was very, very sad to see. Some have very, very tiny markers. And almost all the children are grouped in a specific place, which was kind of sad. But when you realize what went on in the old days, there were epidemics, maternal fatalities, and children died very young because of many reasons. So there are special sections for that. This one I tend to like because of the revolution in Iran more than 35 years ago, 1978. Many of the people in the Persian Jewish diaspora can never go back to see their parents' graves. Beheshtia.com was put together by a guy that lives in LA. He went back and took pictures of almost all the stones in Tehran at the cemetery, and it's called the New Jewish Cemetery, and the old Jewish cemetery, the graves were moved to put into the new one. But he has some 3,000 photographs of stones. Some of them are labeled and indexed, some of them are not, even though they fully say what they are. In other words, this one on the right, which is my husband's cousin, Suleiman Shlomo ben Rachamim Dardashti, in the Hebrew it's very clear. It says Suleiman Dardashti Fazandone, and it has all that information, of course. And in Hebrew, it says Suleiman Shlomo Dardashti ben Rachamim, and it has the name again in Hebrew and in Persian. And the stone on the left is my husband's grandfather, Yaakov ben Israel, which is the same thing. It has it in the Persian on the bottom and in Hebrew on the top. And for most of the people in the Persian Jewish diaspora, this is the closest they're going to get to the graves of their ancestors. So it's a very important site. There are so many Jewish resources out there as there are for secular, and I'll go into many of these things. Learning how to read a Hebrew tombstone in Hebrew can be daunting for those who don't know Hebrew. There's a Jewish Gen info file, tombstones. There are guidelines of what to do when visiting a cemetery. And one of the most important things for me are the symbols on Jewish gravestones. I'm sure you'll all remember on Star Trek Dr. Spock's hand gesture with the fingers separated. This is called, the Kohanim uses, the ancestors of the Kohens, the Jewish priests, dating back to the time of Aaron. And if you see that on a stone, you know that the person who was buried there was a descendant and was what we call a Kohen. If you see a symbol of hands being washed or water with hands pouring on them, that indicates that they would be a Levite, because the Levites were involved with helping and washing at the temple. But there are many, many stones, many symbols on secular tombstones, on Jewish stones. It's well worth looking at this one. This Commons file at Wikimedia is very, very good and very extensive. And I think what we normally do, Esther, we will have a handout for this that we'll be able to send to people with all of these resources on them. Now, I was doing research on Catholic cemeteries, and I noticed that almost every cemetery, if you Google Catholic cemeteries, you will find many resources for particular cemeteries. What it seemed to me was that each diocese geographically has their own site and their own rules and regulations. This one lays out what you can and can't do and what you should do. And this is for the Newark, New Jersey Catholic cemeteries. So depending on which area you're visiting, Google for the cemetery in that geographical location. Read the guidelines. There may be rules, there may be regulations, there may be days that the cemetery is closed. There may be days when it's really too crowded with people visiting their ancestors or relatives' graves. So it's something, it's part of being prepared to check it out. I found two very interesting articles on Chinese cemeteries and Japanese cemeteries that are, these both are very, very good articles that explain about what the gravestones look like, about the customs, funeral customs, and all kinds of really very good basic and extensive information on visiting Asian cemeteries. There's even more information out there. A Grave Interest, which is a great blog, has a lot of information on visiting cemeteries and all kinds of general knowledge about cemeteries. The Association for Graveyard Studies has a wonderful knowledge center. The one at Desert USA explains about visiting cemeteries, things you should do, things you shouldn't do, guidelines, things to bring with you. The last one, namesandstone.com, has really also good guidelines for visiting a cemetery, and they have things that perhaps we don't see in the other websites as well. The Association of Graveyard Rabbits is an association of genealogy bloggers that also are very interested in graveyards and cemeteries. And they have an entire association and also a Facebook page. So you can go to the facebook.com Graveyard Rabbit and read about what they do. You can also go to their About Graveyard Rabbits Association, and that will explain more information, and you can get lists of associations connected to specific geographical locations, and they may be able to help you in various ways. Another very good file of gravestone symbols in general, the cemeteryclub.com symbols. There are 3 more that I also found for gravestone symbols specifically for Jewish cemeteries. JCAM, which is the Jewish Cemetery Association. Blood and Frogs is a great blog. And also commons.wikimedia.org has a wonderful file on Jewish gravestones as well. For those interested in visiting Jewish cemeteries and the traditions involved, the bottom link is also extremely helpful. I'm going to turn this over to Daniel, and I think we're holding most of the questions for the end, and Daniel and I will both be able to answer all of these things. But Daniel, it's yours now to describe BillionGraves.
Thank you very much, Shelly. I have been answering a few of the questions from the people. And yes, very recently, MyHeritage associated with BillionGrave or partnered with BillionGrave with the idea of preserving those cemeteries. And we have heard a lot, I have heard a lot about other projects that are also out there of probably the same style. And the important or the reason of doing this with BillionGraves is the geolocation, the capabilities of having not only the picture of the tombstone, but also the exact location of the stone, and I will show and emphasize that when I'm showing you what to do. So the first thing you should do is go to this web address, billiongraves.com/myheritage, and register yourself. Now, if you belong to a society or group of people that would like to do a project, a cemetery project, you can register and use the letters of the society at the end, as I'm showing on the screen, and MyHeritage would be more than happy not only to help you with resources, guidance, and probably even a few gifts for the society members that will be involved, but also your society is going to get back all the details, all the transcription, and all the images of what you have been done. So if you want to either use it on your own website, or if you would like to collaborate with a bigger project of cemeteries and graves, you can do that without any problem. So once you register on the website, you should download the app either from iTunes or Google Play. It's both doable or supported by iPhone or Android. And the question I would like to answer right now is it's not recommended or it's not useful to do this with iPads or any type of other tablets. And the very reason for that is that the tablets, most of them, don't have GPS. So you will not be able to get the coordinates of the tombstone. I'm going to show you very fast, very quick how this app works. This is the main view of the app once you registered and you go to the cemetery. You just click on take pictures. You will see the camera working right away. We will suggest you to take your phone out of silent mode, even if you are on a cemetery and you think that you should have it on silent, because then you will be able to hear the click of the camera with every pictures that you take, and you will be aware of if the picture was taken or not. Then, of course, click, you take the picture, and if the tombstone have any details, or you would like to do more than one shot per stone, you have on the corner a small change icon that can be pressed at any time, multiple times if you want to take multiple pictures, and put all those images together with the main stone. So the suggestion is always to take the first picture in general of the stone and then go to details. Now, something very important is that this process doesn't require internet. So you can go to the cemetery without internet on your phone. You can take all the pictures that you want, and then when you get back home, you press the button Photos right on that corner below. You will see all the images that you took, and you should go over and maybe delete the ones that you see out of focus or bad, or maybe you took a duplicate picture, and always it's a good idea to take more pictures than what you need and then clean it up. And simply clicking on the button on the upper corner to upload all those images to the website. That's all what you need to do. Now, anytime you can, of course, click on any of the images. Once you do that, you will be prompted with an option either of viewing or transcribing. And yes, you can transcribe directly on the app on the phone. Let me show you very briefly how this works. This is the main page. Once you clicked on the image, I will go up a little bit just so you will see all the details. This is the basic of the tombstones. Like given names, family name, and then the day, month, year of born and died. There's also an advanced page where you will be able to put more information like prefix, suffix, a maiden name, and the married date if by any chance that is written on the stone. Now, what you're looking here is actually a scoop of the very next version of the app that very soon is going to be released. One of the changes that we're doing is that very soon the app is going to support not only Gregorian dates but also Hebrew dates. So you will be able to record both and even convert one to the other. Now, if I keep going down on that screen, and this is also something new, I will be able to transcribe other names that are mentioned on the tombstone. And Shelly already mentioned about other family members that are mentioned, maybe not by name, but some stones may use also to remembrance other family members that died in different situations, and they may not have a burial place. So they may be mentioned on that stone. Or it is very common in Jewish traditions, the name of the father will be mentioned. So you can transcribe that right here, including the relationship between the person buried there and the person mentioned over there. Now, what if I don't have an iPhone or a Android? I don't have a smartphone. All my phones are dumb. Well, you can still collaborate with us. You can still go into the website. You can still transcribe the information that you're looking. You can still add specific information, especially if the person is militarily, or you want to reflect the religion of the person. You can add different notes, an epitaph, add more individuals. Practically the same thing you can do with your iPhone. You can do it with your computer. And you can also at the bottom, and I don't know if you can see it. I understand we have a little bit of troubles with the video, but right there at the bottom of the screen, you can select which country or which cemetery in particular you want to transcribe. So if you took the pictures, you not necessarily have to transcribe, but if you want to transcribe your same cemetery, you can select it over there and transcribe the pictures right there. Now, also on the website, you can simply do a lookup for a person or a cemetery, and once that you select the cemetery that you are looking for, BillionGrave will tell you all the information about it, how many pictures there are, and you're going to see the images with a map, and a Google map, aerial map with the locations of the stones. So this is exactly why BillionGrave is so important. In other systems, you may find the picture, not always, and it's very frustrating when you can get all the transcription or all the details of the person, but not the headstone. But even if you have the headstone, and even if you have the location, like Shelly was explaining, going through a cemetery may be excruciating, trying to find the correct burial. With this, you will be directly to the place of the burial with the geolocation and the marks on the map. And of course, that you can do that as well from your phone. There is an option to go to the cemetery. Again, over there, you will be able to search for the cemetery that you are looking for. Whenever you click on it, you will see a list of images, or you will see the map with all the tombstones and pinpointing the place that you are looking for. Now, if you don't belong to a society, or your society doesn't want to have a cemetery project, whenever you are visiting a cemetery of your relative, I will strongly suggest you to take the app and take even 1, 2, 3 photos. That is always helpful. And why I'm saying this? Precisely for this reason. I was in Romania. I spent a lot of money to go there, visiting a cemetery just to find this stone, which according to the records belongs to one of my relatives. But as you can see, time has done his job, and everything on the stone was completely washed out. So because nobody took a picture of that stone before, I cannot see what the information that was set over there. Now, when you're taking those pictures, you should take in account, as Shelly said, that there are 2 types of stones, the ones that they are stand and the ones that they are flat. And as you can see in those images, always try to take the whole stone and leave some air around the stone, so people who are not familiar with the stone and are looking to these images will not be wondering if the stone had another piece, another information, and you missed it when you took the picture. Now, sometimes you will find tombstones with couple or 2 or 3 people buried one next to the other. Our suggestion is to take both stones in one shot, as you can see it here. The reason is because I may be looking for Mary Reynolds, but I don't know who she married with. And with this image, automatically, I will know and I will see that she was married with David Loso. Of course, this works the other way around. And we already said a lot about cleaning, and just again, very briefly, a couple of examples. Normally, if the stone is very low, I don't know how many of you thought about taking just a normal broom and not to need to bend and do it with a probably with a hand brush like you're seeing in the other image, and that is the best way to do it. And of course, always remember, especially if it's not our relative, that our goal is not to clean all the stones and like to make the cleaning process over there, just to clean enough to make it readable, and then the relative will take care of the rest of the process. Now finally, we were talking about the details. So as you can see here, I have an example of a very complex tombstone with the names of people, dates, symbols. So once you take this picture, which is a general image, then with the chain icon on the application, you can take close-ups of the different symbols, of the different parts, and make sure that everybody will be able to enjoy and see all the details of the stones. So with this, I am finishing my part, and I will invite you all to collaborate with us to help us preserving those stones for future generations. And I will pass now the controls to Esther, which is going to finish with the webinar. I'm still here for questions, which I understand we are going unmuted. Right, Esther?
Yes, thank you so much, Daniel, and thank you to Shelly as well. And now I have a couple questions from some of our users who didn't want to ask live, so I'll just read them out. And Shelly, you and Daniel can answer them. One of them is from James. James asks, when will the data uploaded be available for searches in MyHeritage?
Okay, so we are getting constant updates from BillionGraves. You need to take in account that it's not only the image, it needs to be transcribed, and normally once it's already done the transcription, it probably will take just a couple of weeks until MyHeritage gets the update.
I want to also add, James, that all the records that are collected through BillionGraves will be available for free on MyHeritage. So even without a MyHeritage data subscription, they'll be free for all of our users. Now I'm going to read out a question from Melanie. Melanie asks, where do we write all of the tombstone information if we do not have internet at the cemetery?
Well, we saw already in the app and also on the website. The really suggestion here, and I hate to blow my own horn, but I have to tell you that I have about 20 small cemeteries, a couple of hundreds, I'm sorry, a couple of thousand stones. The trick is not to spend time on the cemetery transcribing. Take the time to take the pictures. Once you are home in the middle of the night on a rainy day or a snow day, you can take all the time in the world to transcribe all what you know and all what you see on the tombstone. And there is place over there on the information on the tabs to put everything that you want about that stone.
Thank you, Daniel. We have a couple more questions. Barbara asked, if the information is not on the stone, would it be advisable to add this information about the stone if you know it already?
The suggestion will be to add it as a note and not as part of the rest of the fields. it's preferably to just transcribe whatever you are seeing on the fields, like the names, the dates, etc., and just you can add a note that you know that the, I don't know, this person was in the war, or the day is wrong, or any other note that you would like to add over there.
Yeah, I would definitely second that. Definitely.
Okay, Servio asked, I don't have a smartphone, but I did volunteer to transcribe via email. When will I hear back?
Well, I'm sorry to tell you that all the transcription must be done online, either from the phone or from the website, because it's the only way that you will be able to actually see the image and transcribe whatever is on the image.
And I just want to add to that, Daniel, that for users of ours that would like to help transcribe, what you should do is to just go to the BillionGraves website, www.billiongraves.com/myheritage, and sign up. And once you do so, once you're signed up as a BillionGraves user, you can go to the transcription link there, and you'll be able to start helping. And you actually don't have to wait for anything from MyHeritage, but you can begin right away. We have another question here from Beatrice. She asks, if I have the grave location and there is no picture, will I find the picture on BillionGraves with the plot location information?
Okay, so if I understand correctly, Beatrice is referring finding information of the stone in another place. In this case, it's Jobar, which is a Jewish cemetery project by Jewish Gen, without picture, with most of the entrance over there don't have a picture. So the only way to find that record with the picture in BillionGrave is only if somebody went back to the cemetery and took the picture and transcribed all the information into the BillionGrave system. Otherwise, probably will be very difficult to find it in BillionGraves.
This question could be for Shelly. Michael asks, what do you recommend if the date from the cemetery database doesn't agree with an official Social Security database record?
Again, I would go back to what Daniel said, and I would record that information in a note. Because we know that there are errors on gravestones, we also know there are errors in government databases also. But it's a very useful item to record as a note on that gravestone. Give the particulars. You can say in the note that according to the Social Security Death Index, the SSDI, they have recorded the date of the person as this and in this location. So all that information will be there when someone clicks on it and it's of interest to them. They will know that there's a discrepancy. So definitely do record any kind of discrepancy. Record that in a note on that gravestone.
Thank you, Shelly, and thank you to everyone that had questions. Everyone was very shy today and nobody wanted to ask them live, but that's okay. And if you have any questions that you want to send to us at a later time, just send them to us at webinars@myheritage.com and we'll answer them for you there. Make sure to get updates on MyHeritage by following our blog, blog.myheritage.com, and that's actually where we'll post a recording of today's webinar. So for anyone that wants to see any of the links that Shelly shared or any of the information that Shelly or Daniel shared with us today, just make sure to visit us on our blog, blog.myheritage.com, and we'll post it there in the next few days. You can also follow us on Twitter @myheritage, and make sure to like our page on Facebook, facebook.com/myheritage. We also have a present for everyone that attended the webinar tonight, 25% discount on a Diva subscription. So all you have to do is use the code DFH DFWEB14, and it'll be valid through to April 5th. So make sure to write that code down, DFHWEB14. And like we said, a data subscription will get you access to all of our 1.5 billion historical records. And you won't need it for the BillionGraves records, but there are many, many other interesting collections that I'm sure you'd all love to see. So thank you again. Thank you to Daniel and thank you to Shelly for sharing with us. And thank you to all of our users that joined us. And if you have any questions, please write to support@myheritage.com. Thank you all and have a nice day.